Would you believe me if I told you I have never played a Gears game before? Never. I've never played a Gears game before. This will be my first one. Let's start with a beta of a game that's not out on a handheld that just came out. Why not? Okay, so there's going to be two parts to this video. The first part is going to be actually benchmarking, extensive benchmarking. I've already done it. But this thing has a really intricate benchmarking tool. I can test different settings, and I can show you CPU load versus GPU load. This game is very CPU heavy, very, very CPU heavy. We'll have to see how we can balance out the GPU and the CPU. On top of that, I'm going to do some discussion of FSR4 versus XeSS, because which one you use is not so clear cut. So that'll be the first part. It's all chaptered out. If you only want to see me actually play the game, go to the second half of the video. Yeah, it's doing pretty good though. 45. There's some scaling. Looks pretty good. Now this is not some easy to run game. This game looks, again, it's only a beta. There will be more optimizations that will come, I'm sure, before launch. But this is a game where, you know, turning up the settings seems to be very hard to run. So that was medium across the board there. I guess we don't need Afterburner for this part because it's literally giving us the stats. So yeah, VRAM, we're fine there. So we're actually really totally fine for VRAM. Even a lower system would be okay. 60 FPS max. But I didn't set a max. I guess we didn't get that far. That's why. Medium across the board there. Whatever. That setting might have changed. But yeah, it looks like we were getting GPU bound only 50% of the time. And that checks out. I mean, this game is apparently very CPU heavy. As we increase the settings, we actually offload the performance bottleneck, I used to call it, the crunch, from the CPU onto the GPU. So when you lower the settings and you throw on scaling, so we have, you know, balanced scaling on, lower settings, we're actually really hitting the CPU quite hard. And we can see here that, you know, we're 50-50 basically, it looks like. It's a really good stat. I kill for this type of... Still at native. We'll do that run again on native, low. And actually, you know what? Let's give it the full... Well, I mean, the CPU doesn't... This is a case where you might this is a rare case where you might actually benefit from the extra watts on the CPU, because it will add some more to the CPU, and this is a very CPU heavy game. So we'll see here. Okay, so GPU bound. So we actually lowered the settings. The GPU bound percent seems to be 23%. So, you know, we're hitting the CPU even harder now because we lowered the settings, right? We took it down settings. And so as a result, when you lower the settings, you take the load off of the GPU, right? The graphics, but you're still doing all these calculations that are still going to hit the CPU just as hard, or very close to as hard. So 55 watts going up to 80 watts did not affect the CPU bound. It did not benefit the CPU. So you can see here, we did get more frames. We actually are up to almost 60, but we're now very, very, very CPU heavy, right? The GPU is starving, to be honest. The CPU can't give it what it needs. Let's try that again. So now we should theoretically be starting to get more GPU bound. So we were at 10% at low. We were basically, the CPU was not able to keep up. It was starving. Then when we went to medium, it was 50-50. Now we're on high. I expect the balance will now shift more towards GPU. It doesn't really matter. Like, you know, you typically want to have a GPU that's powerful enough where you are, you know, able to feed the frames. You want to have a CPU powerful enough that you're able to feed the frames into the GPU, but yeah, the FPS is, you know, we went from 60 down to like 30, 40. We'll see what we end up with here, but okay, so now we're GPU bound. See that? See how before we were so low on the GPU? That other scenario was obviously hitting the CPU. So when there's a lot going on, it's still hitting the CPU, but we finally tipped over that 50% where, you know, turning up the graphics causes us to hit the GPU harder. And we can see here, by increasing the visuals a lot, from low all the way up to high, we actually went from 10% GPU bound up to 66. So now we're still CPU bound. Like, it's still the CPU that's the primary limiting factor. The GPU is still important, like this, to be honest. Like, what can we do here to hit the GPU? I want to make it so that the GPU is what the problem is. It's not the CPU anymore, it's the GPU. So we'll run this again, and now we're on high. So we're increasing the settings, but we're not getting any lower frames. And this is a very good explanation for people who are trying to understand CPU versus GPU bottlenecks. They're both doing things, and they're both important, but they need to be able to feed each other, right? The CPU needs to be fast enough to feed data into the GPU and while calculating a million other things at the same time. Like, this is super, rendery, and the CPU is doing a lot. The GPU is actually still not getting fed up, but I suspect that when we get further on, this is actually going to jump up a lot. Significantly above 60% would be my guess. Pretty much once you get past the scene here, I'm guessing that the GPU bound is going to go up a bit. Let's see if I'm wrong or not. It's still a little higher, but, regardless of what's happening, there still is a lot for the CPU to calculate. So, right, like we don't have an X3D based mobile chip in here, like a 7945HX3D or something like that, right? We are putting more load on the GPU. So as we did this, see, so now we actually, yes, we are even more GPU bound, but we actually have kind of bad frames there. Like, it's actually... All right, so let's see what we can get here. Just generic medium again. No scaling. The frame rate is jumping around a lot. I feel like we're going to end up with almost the same actual performance as we had before with those ultra medium mix, because we were hitting the GPU heavier. Now we're just hitting the CPU heavier, but we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be tough because, I mean, this game is a case where, like, they're being bottlenecks at 1440p. Not even 1080p, 1440p with a 9800X3D CPU. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to run on mobile processors. Yeah, so it made no difference. It's like the same performance. Okay, well... Yeah, I mean, this is what we're going to be dealing with here, because once you start to use scaling in that, you're just going to hit the GPU even heavier, sorry, the CPU even heavier, so... All right, so we'll do one more run here, just medium, and the only difference here is I just tried XeSS. We can turn up these GPU intensive things again, and, just see if we can offload onto the GPU more, but I think that we're going to kind of be hitting a similar type performance regardless of what we do here for that exact situation. So we'll do this one more time now with XeSS instead of FSR. XeSS does not give you the performance boost like it does on Intel, like a hardware level boost, but it also doesn't give you the it doesn't give you the performance penalty of FSR. So, in very GPU heavy titles, I would typically reach a bit more towards FSR because it just looks so good that you can crank it up quite a bit. But it does come with a performance penalty, and that could be a problem. Yeah, we're very CPU bound here. Very, very, very CPU bound here. However, the frame rate is way up now. So using XeSS instead of FSR seems to be really benefiting us in terms of performance. Like, a lot. It doesn't look as good, right? FSR was definitely looking less soft. This does look a little soft. Yeah, it's looking a little soft compared to FSR. We're severely CPU heavy. We're severely CPU bound at 5%, but the performance is way higher. Okay, so this is kind of an example of, I've talked about it a little bit in my previous videos, FSR versus Intel, XeSS. So FSR is the AMD tech, DLSS is NVIDIA, XeSS is Intel. Here's the thing. You can use XeSS and you can use FSR on this handheld here. Okay? FSR 4, the brand new one, FSR 4, is supported on Strix Halo, this chip here, Strix Halo, but you get a performance penalty when you use it. Okay, you get a performance penalty when you use it because it's not designed for this chip. It's designed for the desktop 9000 series. So you use it, it looks great. It brings down how much demand the GPU is on the GPU because you're rendering at a lower resolution, but you're putting not only the CPU penalty of lowering the resolution, but you're also putting a CPU penalty of it's hard to run. Okay, so now the second half of the video. We're going to go with that, I guess, the setting that I found to be most optimal for like higher FPS, which is medium with that XeSS. Again, you can tweak it as you go, but we'll just see what we can get here. This looks like Fred Durst. All right. Oh, it's running actually way better than I thought. Those benchmarks were showing it running like... I mean, we were using the setting that was getting closest to 60 FPS, which was medium with XeSS instead of FSR. Looks fine. I mean, it's a little crunchy, a little soft with the XeSS, but it's running well. And again, we have that higher FPS, right? It's running pretty well. I think this is like, we're not CPU bound because there's nothing going on. So we're probably hitting the GPU primarily right now, but it's running really well. Let's run around and before the chaos ensues, I'm assuming, in a moment. We'll see what 35 gives us with this kind of semi-optimal preset that we had before. Yeah, it's running fine even with 35. There is a pretty big jump up to, that 55. Okay, let's turn it back up. I haven't even seen an enemy yet. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we're definitely not maintaining, that 75, 80 FPS under gameplay. But with that high FPS, with that high watt, but we're doing pretty well. We're getting that 65, which is what we were getting in the benchmark with with just scaling, basically. So it was medium with scaling, with XeSS. Which seems to be okay. I mean, we're doing all right. Oh, he's got his big-ass chain gun. This is really fun. I don't really know what I'm doing. It plays really smoothly. And I mean, yeah, we're getting lows of 22 is actually not bad considering what I've seen in this game is super hard to run. Yeah, I'm not unhappy about that. I was quite worried watching those benchmark runs. But I mean, we did find out that, throw on XeSS instead of FSR, and yeah, it does soften it a little bit, but it helps a lot with the CPU not just getting slaughtered. Again, doesn't seem to be too much going on right now. I'm going to switch over to FSR and see if it does make a difference. Right, because we were at XeSS balanced, FSR. Cool, let's try FSR performance and see. Yeah, see FSR, even with performance FSR, it's not really giving us anything over XeSS, to be honest, because it's a harder to run algorithm, right? So it is matching the benchmarks. Let's turn it down by 1. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference because we're running the algorithm, right? So it's a little harder. Yeah, so FSR versus XeSS, it doesn't seem to be making a huge difference yet. FSR was generally running pretty well. Maybe if there's another combat area, we'll try it with FSR and see if it makes a difference. Suffice it to say, it's running fine. When you're in combat, that didn't seem to be the heaviest amount. I mean, there weren't like waves of waves. We're on rookie mode. There weren't like waves and waves and waves of enemies and that kind of stuff. I'd suspect that as that starts to happen, the CPU starts to get slammed a little harder. But we were maintaining an easy 60 there. All right. Oh, high is really hard to run. Yeah, you can't do high. Immediately no. Immediately no. You can't do it. You are definitely not doing high. Let's try low. Even with scaling, high was a gigantic, gigantic performance drop. Yeah, this is low now. Let's come in here and get into this little combat area, and you guys can... I'm going to try to not die, and you guys can monitor that. But we are up a little bit being on low. But maybe not, actually. Oh, that guy looks big. Low is running better on low. Despite the fact that we're probably hitting the CPU heavier, it is running better. We went from like 60 or so. Now, we are also on FSR. Low looks a little soft, but... Yeah, so, I mean, you can play around with it. Cool, we won. You can play around with it, up, down. One guy got left behind, he ran off. He literally ran off. So some of the things looked, up and down. I think, medium with either XeSS or FSR is going to do the trick, and it's going to run well. So you're going to be able to do it, basically. Even at 35, it was running okay. It's not going to be the type of game that you're probably going to be running at 20 watts, but it was running just fine at 55, and it was running just fine at 35. No problems. It felt smooth. It felt good. So yeah, I think this is going to bode well for this game, for people who have this handheld.